remember like the biggest mistake I made for like the first 3 months of working on that project. I quit my job, but now the skill set that I'm focused on honing in is using the information effectively to work with the highest talent specialists, and shout outs to then going back to like, what do I want to build? How do I want to deliver it? Who do I want to work with? The 2 weeks of sleeping on couches, not knowing where I was going to go the next day. And I lived in it for like 3 weeks. And I'm like, okay, I'm sold on Austin.
We skipped a couple weeks. We skipped a couple months, but now we're here with Harrison Coley.
Damn, bro, the disrespect. That's
how do you pronounce it? I never asked you.
It's Coley.
Harrison Coley. So we're here with Harrison Coley. I've known this guy for over a year now, and I've just learned how to pronounce your last name. So here we are. Sales Bro. We're in a house full of sales bros. If you guys watched the last episode, you may recognize this. We had Naven, his roommate, one of the roommates that lives here, a whole house full of hustlers. And so, yeah, we're going to dive into just sales, business, life, the come up story, what business is like now, spit some game for the younger people, and see what comes from that. So Harrison, appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, bro. Happy to be here.
So in-person pods are always different, bro. Especially when you like know the person. Because I run a lot of like remote ones with people that I kind of know, which is fun and is cool, but I feel like we always get deeper. Actually, it's not out yet, but the one we recorded like was really good. We talked about some really good stuff. But if someone watching this doesn't know who Harrison is yet, who is Harrison?
I'm just a guy.
Yeah.
I'm just a chill dude.
So I don't really know much about this guy. I was just like, yo, you want to film a podcast? No, I'm just kidding. But what are you up to right now?
Yeah, cool. I'm building a internet marketing consultancy. So we're scaling businesses, personal brands on Instagram. That's kind of the specialization. We work primarily with real estate investment funds and high ticket coaches. So high ticket info, high ticket real estate or real estate investment. And we scale on personal brands on Instagram.
How, for those of you guys watching, if you're salespeople, we're definitely going to talk about some sales stuff, but I want to bring like general business, online business knowledge to anyone watching. And how do you end up working with high ticket info and real estate funds? Like it's like two completely different things.
Totally. Well, I got started in real estate. So my mom is a realtor. So growing up in the house, like we had feast or famine, like she closed a deal. It was awesome. We were waiting on deals. It wasn't so awesome. So I kind of grew up around real estate. Actually moved 12 times before I was 18 because my family's motto was like we'd move into a house, we'd renovate the house, and then we'd move out. So like fixing and flipping. And so like I remember as a kid, like we used to scrape popcorn ceilings, and like when I was 8 years old, I was in a crawl space with my dad putting jack stands underneath the house to straighten out the foundation. So that was kind of how I got started, and then was in real estate photography. Was my first real business out of high school was real estate photography. So real estate's always been near and dear to my heart. It's like oldest industry in the world, except for another industry we won't talk about. And so real estate has always been something I'm present to. I actually almost got my real estate license. We can talk about that. But ended up when I was in real estate photography, and then I ended up getting a job because I was like, my life isn't really going anywhere and don't really know what I should be doing. So I found a mentor, started working for this dude in paper shredding. And I was doing paper shredding. And that's kind of where I learned. I built the website, ran Facebook ads, Google ads. Like that's kind of where I learned internet marketing as a whole and sales, because we have to negotiate contracts for paper shredding. So that's kind of where I initially got a taste for real actual sales, was paper shredding. And then I quit the job, started a marketing agency, and that required me to really hone the skill of sales.
So how did you, and that makes sense, how you're working with these two different people. How did you end up getting put onto the idea of like info, online, high ticket, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so I kind of on a whim quit my job, paper shredding. And this would have been like June of 2020. I want to say June of 2021 is when I quit that job. And pretty quickly after, I'm like, oh my God, I have no idea how to get a client. I don't even know who to work with. Like, how am I going to make any money? I got into high ticket info on accident. So I was trying to figure out how to make money online, trying to figure out how to start my agency. And I came across this ad by this guy, Gerard Adams. to join his course. And so I like book a sales call with his team to join his course. And I get on the sales call with this guy, Mike Golub, absolute goat in sales. Shout out Mike, if you're listening, you know who you are. And so I get on this call with Mike and I'm like, dude, I'll be honest. At the end of the call, I was like, I'll be honest. Like I just quit my job. Like I don't have I remember it was $4,000 program. I'm like, I don't have 4 racks to invest in anything right now. And he's like, that's totally fine. I think actually we might be able to, like, we might have some work for you if you're interested. So he ended up connecting me with the CMO of Gerard Adams' company, Leaders Create Leaders, Brandon. And Brandon got me my first contract. So it wasn't even with Gerard Adams. He got me a contract with another person he knew who was a high ticket online coach. And so Brandon was like, hey, you're a good kid. I believe in you. Mike was like, you're a good kid. I believe in you. And so Brandon sent me a client that was a high ticket coach. Her name is Veronica. And that was like my first high ticket info coach client. And then a couple months later, ended up doing business with Leaders Create Leaders, or Gerard Adams. And that's where I learned appointment setting and kind of built out the social media side of things.
Nice. So did you say you had jumped on it was a sales call for this program? You didn't have any money? Like were you window shopping, or what was the intention?
Low key, I didn't even realize it was a sales call. So marketing wasn't great. It was, I remember like the fun was like apply to work with me. And I was like, oh, I could get like dream client. Like I could get Gerard as a client. So I got on this call, like kind of expecting to talk to his team about what opportunities they had and what they were working on. And he walks me through this pitch deck and I'm like, yo, Mike, I have to stop you, bro. I'm like,
okay, at least you didn't like just go in with the intention of like info seeking. But that's cool. So just how life works. You're in the right place at the right time and you bring the right attitude, the right energy, and capitalize on opportunity. And like looking back, it all makes sense, but like looking ahead and trying to figure out where you're wanting to go, where you need to go, all that stuff, you probably didn't predict that to be like an outcome, right?
No, I never thought I would get into high ticket online sales and marketing. Like this was info product online. Like I didn't even know this world existed 5 years ago.
Yeah. How different was it? Because were you DM setting or phone setting, or
DM setting, yeah.
How different was DM setting 5 years ago versus now?
It was so easy, bro. So like Gerard had 500,000 followers on Instagram. He had a popping brand at the time. Like he was cool. People wanted to follow him. People wanted to engage with him. So like cold outbound was so easy. This is the time when an account with 500K followers, like cold outbounding, like some account with like 1,000 followers and people believed it. People were like, oh, hi, Gerard. Yeah, so it was just stupid easy to book calls.
Yeah. What did you learn? I mean, you're like a well-spoken guy, and some people have difficulty in the DMs via text, like going through this process. What were some things that you learned really early on as you were doing that helped you basically ramp up to performance, do the job as best you could? Like, how did you get good at it?
Yeah, so when I was a kid, I didn't have a lot of I'm going to tie this in. When I was a kid, I didn't have a lot of friends. So like before I even got into internet marketing, I was reading all these books on like how to win friends and influence people, and like I'm studying psychology on like essentially how to make friends. So when I first got into Gerard's DMs, because the other clients were like building out landing pages and running ads, but Gerard was the first time I was like in the Instagram DMs for a client. And I remember like the biggest mistake I made for like the first 3 months of working on that project. I had to like zoom out and realize this, but for the first like 3 months, I got almost no results because I was trying to be friends with people. Like I had learned all these things about how to make friends, how to influence people, how to like be personable. To your point, like I'm a pretty extroverted and social guy, but I was applying it the wrong way. Like Gerard is coming in from a position of authority. He has social proof. Like he has a lot of positioning and brand credibility where I could have been very direct and been like, what's your goal? What's your problem? Do you want to hop on a call with my team? I could have probably just pitched the call in a couple like first 3 to 5 messages and seen really good success. And instead I'm like trying to talk to people about their lives, like, hey, how's it going? What's up in your world? What are you working on? So that's what not to do. Definitely if you're in the DMs or you're on the phone with a prospect, like understand you need to build trust and build a relationship, but don't build trust at a consequence of not keeping the conversation focused. Like when I actually got good at appointment setting, it was through the realization like I can be kind of a dick. Like I can be cold in the
Yeah.
DMs because what I've realized is like clients actually trust you more if you demonstrate expertise by staying focused.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, we can talk about that later. Thank you. Let's stay focused on this.
Especially too, based on who you are working on behalf of. Like some people, maybe it is within their brand image to be more friendly and establish that relationship. And obviously that takes longer to get where you're trying to go. But then other people, like I actually don't know the guy you worked for, but it sounds like he was probably just a more straight shooter, direct, and it's almost weird to like not be that, you know? Um, but yeah, it's so nuanced, bro.
It's so because it's interesting. Like Gerard's a very like we were selling a very spiritual, very
Yeah.
emotional offer, like about like personal development and like how someone's doing. I remember Mike, like Mike and I would get on these daily stand-ups, and so like Mike was the sales guy that initially fed me the opportunity, and like actually believed in me. Like he was like the first guy on the internet to just kind of throw a bone at me and say, "Hey, here's a chance," which insane. Still think about it to this day. Um, but I remember we get on these daily sales stand-ups and Mike would be like, instead of this question, ask this question. And it's like, really you're asking the same thing, which is like, what are you doing? But you're asking it worded differently. So it stays on topic of like, how are you improving your life? Or like, what are you focused on improving in your life right now versus what are
Yeah.
you working on? It's,
Yeah. No, I mean, asking impact or like not important, impactful, but like very intentional questions like that is you can really tell like how experienced or like how good someone is at sales and this stuff by the quality of the questions that they ask and then what they do with the information they receive. Because it's usually like a few of those questions that are very like thoughtful but intentional in the way that you kind of already know the answer and you already kind of know where you want to drive the conversation. And that's why sales is really hard. It's hard to teach to people, bro. Like
it
some
is.
people just pick that up, right? And then other people, you can get like 80% of the way from like studying and practicing, but the ones who just like naturally have that like I mean, I don't know if you'd consider like emotional intelligence or whatever, but it's hard to like compete with those guys, you
For
know?
sure. I mean, there's like always going to be all stars, right? It's like if you're not born 6'5", you're probably not going to be an NBA all star. But like you could still be competitive. You'd still play the game well.
Yeah.
I would say like I think I'm pretty ignorant to the game of sales, or I was early on. Of to your point of like asking, like the keys to sales being if you ask important questions and you use the information they share with you effectively, you can master the game of scale, master the game of sales. It's very foundational. Early on, I was too chatty. Like I asked too many questions. I asked the wrong type of questions, and then I responded at length. Like I'm a very chatty person.
Yeah.
And now it's like I've realized, okay, I've gotten really good at asking good questions. Now, what always more to improve upon. But now the skill set that I'm focused on honing in is using the information effectively.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny, dude, cuz I think I'm not going to say there's diminishing returns to getting better and better and better at sales, but at a certain point like you kind of already know what you need to do and how you should do it. And like lately, a lot of what I've been doing, um, which might be contradicting to here if I'm like running a sales community, whatever, is like making the sale as easy as possible on the call. And so that means paying attention to all the stuff before, which you do a lot of
Yeah.
with people that you work with. But all the way up, if you have say into like the marketing and the different levels of that, and then like pre-call stuff, and then even like
Yes.
just I mean, you for sure do this, but like the organic content that people are seeing, you know, before their call, like after they book, but before they have the call.
Yeah.
Like there's so many different levels to it. Um, and I just I found that there's a lot of value in being able to go into a business and pinpoint where the weak points are. Because if you can make like I mean, if you really look at it like a funnel, bro, like you make a
Yes.
small change all the way at the top, and the way that that affects the throughput of the overall funnel, um,
You
is it?
can crack it wide open. It's
Yeah,
like just your conversion rate off of like initial awareness to first point of contact. It's like if you can improve that by 5%, you like 2 to 3x your throughput if you're effective with it.
yeah,
It's super, super simple.
And then, I mean, especially in info, but just like any kind of online or any kind of sales, dude, if you're relying too much on sales ability, and usually that's in kind of like a negative way. You could rely on it in a good way, but if you rely on someone to handle all these objections and hard close and do all this stuff, like it leads to refunds, chargebacks,
Yes.
unhappy clients, bad expectations. Um, and so why not just like handle all that in marketing so you don't have to deal with that? And the sales call is easy. Like there's teams that we run with, where sales calls are almost like onboarding calls. It's like,
It's so much better.
yeah, they've already kind of decided like, hey, I already want to buy this. This is just like the next step for me to do that,
Yeah.
you know? And they're like, yeah, give me the rundown, show me all what's included. But they're like coming into it, their mind is pretty much made up.
Which is like, I'm a huge, huge, huge fan. And especially in the worlds that I'm in, like high ticket info and real estate, like I would much rather have exceptional marketing and mediocre sales than
Yeah.
mediocre marketing and exceptional sales. Because to your point, it's like, if you front load expectations, if you front load trust and relationship and rapport and social proof and all these things, like initial exposure content, nurture content, pre-call prep, like if you actually do those things well, a good closer goes from a 30 to 40% close rate to 70 to 85% close rate. And now it's like, now you can actually make the most out of the leads you have instead of pushing people an objection. Like I remember when I first got really obsessed with internet marketing, like when I started the agency and I had like 4 clients and I'm like really scrapping. And I got obsessed with like all of these different companies that were growing. And I remember like Traffic and Funnels and a couple other big ones at the time, Scaling with Systems. They like had closing frameworks where it was like 100 different ways to cash collect on the call. And it's like these high pressure sales tactics, like used car dealership tactics, where it's like get their mom to front them a cash down payment or like refinance their car. Here's like 5 things in your house that are more valuable than you think that you can sell on eBay. I'm like, no, thank you, bro.
I saw that from somewhere. We don't have to name drop. I'm trying to remember who. Um, but I did see that and I was like, wow, that's pretty
It's crazy.
intense.
Yeah.
Dude, I mean, you just don't have to do that, like,
No.
I
And
know you know that, but
and I would argue like to this conversation, it's the people that get the best results aren't the ones that need to sell their PlayStation. Usually, right? It's like if you're selling B2C, let's say obviously like your sales community, you have guys that are starting out for the first time. It's like that might take a massive leap of faith where they zero out their bank account to get results. Versus like the work that I do with business owners, I need business owners that have runway. It's like if they're,
yeah.
hey, I'm about to file bankruptcy, here's my last few dollars. The business owners don't get results like that.
Yeah. Especially with marketing, it's like unless you're doing something really, really wrong, bro, it's very odd for there to be just like an extremely fast ROI or turnaround. Like it's usually a process that needs to compound and refine over time. I don't know, maybe you have some secret stuff that I don't know about that.
Yeah, I mean,
Many chat DMs, just like throw that at someone's business and boom, like 3x overnight.
Yeah, automate your DMs and immediately you'll make 100K a month. That's the secret, guys. Just automate your DMs, even if you have 300 followers. And none of them are your ICP, and none of them care about you. You haven't posted in 6 months. Just automate your DMs, bro.
Yeah, AI DM setting bot, like ManyChat to AI DM setting bot.
I mean, it can print if you have good relationship with audience and solid traffic flow. But it's like if you don't have exposure, I think it's just a waste of time, honestly.
Yeah. Let's talk about something to kind of like let people know that you're seriously about your stuff. You used to run a pretty big agency. It was an agency, right?
Yeah.
With a lot of partners.
Yes.
There's a lot of people involved. Without getting too much into numbers, I'll let you talk about it if you want, but multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars per month agency from what I remember.
Yes.
What was it like working? You had like 5 or you and 4 others, or there's a lot of people involved?
So we had a C-suite of 6 people. Yeah, it was solid. So like I'll kind of give you the cliff notes because I left us off. I get a couple agency clients and I'm like small agency. I start working with Gerard Adams and a couple other people. Like I have a couple name brand, like actually recognizable names, like solid trust in the marketplace, offers that are getting momentum. And so now I start getting momentum. And working with Gerard was really what put me onto DMs, and seeing the results we were getting in the DMs for Gerard made me think, hey, can I do this for other clients? And can we rip cold outbound? And so now I started trying to rip cold outbound off of an account with 3,000 followers and no posts versus Gerard with 500K and a bunch of posts. And so then I start seeing, oh, wait, I need a good audience that's well nurtured with good content, and then I can rip DMs really effectively. I mean, back 4 years ago, like you could still get results cold DMs, but conversion, I'm a math guy at the end of the day, and conversion rates were way lower. So ended up gaining some momentum. I'm taking on these clients, and now I'm like kind of figuring it out where like now I'm creating content and managing content for clients. Now I'm running DM campaigns, and I'm running Facebook ads and Instagram shout outs to actually gain traffic to a page. And so now I'm looking at how do I gain followers? How do I make good content? And how do I rip DMs? And so I kind of started with DMs, then I got into content. Then I mean, the initial skill when I was working the job doing paper shredding was Facebook ads. That's really where I got started. And so it kind of came full circle because that was the last thing I kind of put into the agency. Then I ended up meeting this guy, Leo, who was running this company, Traffic Hive. And Leo was like, hey, what would it look like? At this point, I'm doing pretty decent mid 5 figures a month just by myself, ripping like an 80% profit margin. I had 2 people on my team and a VA. And so I'm doing pretty good. I remember it was actually right the second or third time I visited Austin. I was sitting at Collective at the gym, and I'm upstairs and I'm on a call with this guy, Leo, who I connected with over Instagram DMs, cold outbound off of my account. And Leo's like, dude, I think it would be awesome for us to partner. Like I do the exact same thing. They ran Instagram shout outs. It was their specialty. And so Leo and I ended up meeting in Mexico with this other guy, Thor. Actually, excuse me, I think Thor was the one that connected Leo and I. So Thor and I had like done a podcast previously. Thor was a super cool guy. He was involved with Gerard. I don't want to make this too complicated. But anyway, long story short, Leo and I ended up partnering. I ended up taking my entire agency and essentially bringing it inside of Leo's agency. And so I stepped into Leo's agency as the CEO. So I took my company, folded it into Traffic Hive, and stepped on as operating CEO. At that point, that 5x'd the revenue that I was doing. So I was doing 1/5 of the revenue. Well, technically 1/4, and then when I brought it on, we were 1/5 the revenue. So we're doing decent numbers as an agency. Come on as CEO, we ended up doubling the monthly recurring revenue, increasing profitability, and working with some really awesome people in the industry, like leaders in high ticket info, people that everybody recognizes, household names. Yeah. And that's really where I got a lot of steam because now I'm working with, and now I could actually add the budget and the momentum and the brand and Leo's foundation that he'd been building for years to work with the highest talent specialists in shout outs, in appointment setting, in content creation. So now I actually had a really solid team around me. And yeah, to your point, so we were ripping mid 6 figures a month, working with just insane level people. I think at that time we had a team of 26 people full time. The oldest person on our team was like 28.
That's funny. Damn. Yeah. I mean, again, not to name drop or anything, but we've talked about like some of the people you used to work with, and they're people that if we did name drop, you'd be like, wow, that's pretty crazy. So what is I mean, so you start, obviously, like most people, you start kind of small, you end up in this big operation. That's kind of like where our agency's at right now, with like a lot of people involved. Mm-hmm. And then you eventually downsize, which we'll get to. But like, what are some of your favorite or least favorite things about running in that like machine, that like 20, almost 30 people, where your decisions hold a lot of weight? There's a lot of like trickle down. Your day to day obviously looks different. Like what were like some of your favorite or least favorite things from that time?
Yeah, for sure. So a few things that stand out is once we broke through and we're ripping consistent 6-figure months, like consistent, steady, multi 6-figure months, the biggest thing that stood out to me is like the foundations and the preparation that went into hitting 10K and 20K months shows up a lot at 150 to 250K months. Like it's dramatically clear on whether or not you put in SOPs, you built the right delegation frameworks, you actually built systems and processes around what you were doing. So when I came into the agency, we didn't have a lot of infrastructure. We were taking money from Jim to pay Joe. And so it was constantly putting out fires. And I imagine even with a strong foundation, like in that like early 7-figure annual run rate, you're going to be putting out fires all the time. So I was like, my least favorite part is I'm working 18-hour days, and like 2 to 3 hours of that day is like actually moving the business forward. But the majority of it is this ball got dropped, that team member dropped this, or this isn't working as well as it should be. And that was a lot of my time was just like jumping into projects. So I think like the big key highlight that I realized is like you have to do the prep. Like early on, you got to have a couple clients. So I think like 10 to 25K a month is the sweet spot where you have enough work to afford delegating and systems, but you also have enough bandwidth, even if it doesn't feel like, to actually put in SOPs and actually put in systems and processes and delegation, or being able to delegate, like putting in those foundations. And so that's kind of the biggest lesson I learned from it. My favorite part about working at that level of working with so many people on the team is the organization chart. And so there's this guy, I don't know if are you familiar with Craig Ballantyne?
The name sounds familiar, but
okay. He's like super OG internet marketer. So Craig Ballantyne, way back in the day, started a fitness offer, ripped it up to 7 figures, now runs a mastermind called Early to Rise. Just super solid dude, like very high integrity, man of character, like just a really like I think it actually means to be a business. Like Craig, to me, exemplifies what it means to be a business owner in like the online info product space, where he delivers on what he says he's going to deliver, actually takes care of his team, actually takes care of his clients. Imagine that. But Craig was a lifesaver. So we're working with obviously, and we can name drop a couple of people. Like we're working with like Russell Brunson, Brandon Dawson, who's the CEO of Cardone Ventures, and a couple other like really high level profile clients. We ended up bringing on Craig Ballantyne as a client, and I reached out to him. I'm like, hey, you're super legit at what you do. I've seen Early to Rise. Like, you guys are amazing. One of our team members, Nav, actually already had like gone to one of his seminars before. And Craig ended up mentoring me for like 8 months while I'm building this agency. And he was the guy that was like, put an org chart in place, like actually have assigned roles and responsibilities. That was my favorite part, is getting on like team stand-up meetings. We'd have like an all hands meeting every week on Friday. And then on Monday, we'd have an executive meeting we called it the round table. So it's just like the head of marketing, the head of sales, head of operations, head of ads, like just the core team. And those calls were my favorite, is like getting on those calls and being like, all right, here's the projects for marketing, projects for operations, projects for delivering. Like, here's what are our key issues this week. Here's what we need to focus on. And then seeing that ripple throughout the rest of the week, like seeing Slack dings and people collaborating, that was by far my favorite part.
Yeah. So what you mentioned just now, like if you had to pick, like, go back in time with what you know now and having gone through that experience, you obviously learned and reflected on it, and you've done new stuff prior, is what not your favorite part of it, but the most important part of it. You said between that 10 to 25 range, like building the structure for scale. Is that one thing that you'd go back and like really nail down, or if there's like one thing, knowing what you know now, to like make it better, faster, more successful, like would you do something else?
Great question. I'm going to rapid fire like 4 different things I would do differently.
Okay.
So number one, I just spent the last year. So like I stepped down as CEO of Traffic Hive. I step out of the company, and I've spent the last year perfecting an offer, perfecting delivery, like really getting excited about what I'm building, and building out operations, building out systems. So yes, that like key foundational skill is like, make sure if you want something to grow bigger than you, it's like if you want a team to run your business, then you should probably build the SOPs so that they can run your business. Yeah. Like it's like you can't have the ego to think that you're the only person that can get the result and simultaneously expect your business to be bigger than you. It's like, you either have a high paying job and it's all reliant on you, or you have systems and it's, so that'd be biggest thing that I've learned. I think the other key things is like pick with the right clients, like work with the right people. At least when I was starting out, like working with low level clients or people with low to no momentum and trying to get results was so much harder than working with people that already had brand goodwill. They already had solid foundations. They already had a good closer, which goes into the third point, which is hire the right people. And so early on in my career, I took a lot of chances on people. Of like, someone took a chance on me, and so I thought by default, I need to go out, I need to find guys that have no experience and hire them. I think that's good if you have momentum and if you have like almost like secondary systems or things that you can fall back on. Like you know your bases are covered. like you already have your starting team, so you can hire bench warmers. But I was trying to hire bench warmers and put them on my starting team. So third thing is hire talent, like hire people that have verifiable skills and a track record of success. Um, I think the last thing that was really key for me, well, knowing now, is measure everything. So it's like the Cody Sanchez said this on a podcast, and I heard it a while ago, and I love it. She said, "How do you spell CEO? You spell it sales." And so it's like CEO is spelled sales, and like cash is king. And so we were ripping multiple 6-figure months, but we're not keeping any money at the end of the month. And so what I've learned is I have to know where my money's going. It's like how much money's coming in, like where can I find new money? How much money's actually coming in? Where is that money going, and how much do I have left over? Because if I don't know the vitals of my cash flow, it's like I could have 60K in employee overhead and I could rip 100K a month. And then at the end of the month, what happened? I'm negative. Like, where did the money go?
Yeah.
So
were you, I think this is like some cool or some good context to add in here. When you joined this agency that was already at a good size, were you the first C-suite that was added besides the guy who was running it before, or were there already some others in there?
So all of the guys that ended up being C-suite were existing like business partners. And so Leo, the founder, there's a couple guys. So there's Nav, Euclides, Thor, Antonio, Leo, and myself. So there's 6 of us that kind of were involved throughout I think Leo had built the agency over like 3 years up until then. And so at different points, he had been working with different ones as the leader, right? So like he had Nav leading the company, and then Euclides leading the company, and then Thor leading the company. I was the first person, I believe, and I could be wrong on the history before I came in, but I think I was the first person to kind of put everybody around each other and say, you're responsible for this, you're responsible for this, so that everybody had a role to play.
How did you fall into the position of like CEO versus something else?
Dude,
in somebody else's business?
I have no idea.
Did you like kind of work? You just like came in and you started working. And it's like, hey, this CEO feels right, or was it like, dude, do you want to be the CEO? Like, how did it work?
It was, so to your point, it's like I will whenever I'm looking for like what to do next, right? So it's like whenever I'm like, okay, where do I want to take the business next? What do I want to do next with my life? Like I go wherever God, universe, whatever word you want to use. For me, I'm a Christian. It's God. Like I'm gonna go where the opportunity presents itself.
Mm-hmm.
And we're sitting at a cabin in Norway, and Leo's like, and everybody's there. So it's like all 6 of us in this cabin. We're snowed in Norway. And Leo looks up at me, and everybody's around the table. He's like, I think you should be the CEO. I was like,
that's funny.
Dude, it was not expected for sure.
Yeah. You've done a lot of, you mentioning Norway brings me to this. You've done a lot of like travel, digital nomad stuff. Were you doing that while you were like running this business?
Yeah. Yeah. So our family was like feast and famine, as I said. So we didn't travel growing up. Like we didn't do road trips, or I think we took one road trip to Canada. My mom's family is Canadian, but I didn't really see anything. And so as soon as I got out of a 9-to-5, like as soon as I quit my job and I was trying to build the company, I'm like, why would I build this company here, miserable, by myself, if I can do it traveling? Did I do it the right way? Probably not. But traveling freedom is very important to me. So like right now I'm in a season, I like being here in the house. To your point, like we have 6 guys living in this house. It's crazy. The energy is amazing. I don't really want to leave. Like I'm very happy right now.
Yeah.
But when I was starting out, like I needed freedom to motivate me.
Yeah. What are top 2 or 3 spots that you've been to? Like countries?
That's a great question.
Or cities, if you want to get that specific.
I think Greece was the most meaningful. So Greece is where I went immediately after I quit my job. Like Greece was the place I was like, I quit my job, I'm going to Greece. So Greece was like the most sentimental. Egypt, I think, is my favorite in terms of Egypt's culture is crazy. You're like a little sketched out the whole time, but you can bribe the police and pay for luxury. I don't know if I can say that.
I don't think Egypt's going to be watching this. We should be fine.
We're fine. Yeah, I think we should be okay. And then I had this moment in Egypt, actually. I'll share it with you. While I was in Egypt, we were sailing down the river Nile. We're on this boat. It's a group of like 10 of us. And I'm sitting on the front of this boat going down the river Nile. I've dreamed of Egypt since I was a kid. Like I was obsessed with Egyptian culture. And we're sailing down the Nile, and I have a hotspot, and I'm on my computer, and I'm on a sales call. and I closed a deal for $4K a month, sitting on the front of this boat watching the sunset over the River Nile. And I was like, that was the moment I'm like, I'm never going back to a job.
That's wild.
Like, that was like the peak endorphin moment. And then I'm gonna close out with dude, I don't even know the third country.
You done South America?
No, I'm going to South America March for the first time. Have you?
No.
Where are you coming with? We're going to Colombia.
We'll see. You said March?
Yeah.
I'm going to Japan in March.
That's right.
So,
what a shame.
Yeah.
Breaking my heart.
Maybe. We'll see if we can squeeze it in.
Yeah. Fire me up, bro. Let's roll.
Well, what brought you to Austin?
Have you heard of ALA?
I've heard of it.
Okay.
All right. I was at the I don't know if it was like an after thing that you guys had here, but I know I know what it is. It's like a emotional intelligence training kind of, or leadership kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, the internet calls ALA a cult.
It seemed a little culty when we were.
For sure. No, yeah. I'll say I had a positive experience. So Brandon. So I get on the sales call with Gerard Adams, or with his team, Mike. Mike introduced me to their CMO, Brandon, and Brandon calls me out of the blue. I was watching a football game with some buddies, actually the guys I used to work with at the paper shredding company. And he's like, how committed to your goals are you? How committed to creating the future that you want are you? And I was like, I'm committed. And he's like, sign up for ALA. And I was like, okay, bet. So I signed up for this program, ALA, and it's in Austin. So the first time I ever came to Austin was for the program. And I had a life-changing, radically transformative experience going through that. And Austin itself was life-changing and radically transformative. So I'm like, I know a bunch of very successful, very smart, very awesome people in Austin. Austin seems like a great spot to be. And so I started coming to Austin, just crashing on people's couches. Like, I lived at this one dude's house on Lake Travis. This is like multi-million-dollar house on Lake Travis. And he has a 2,000 square foot guest house. And I lived in it for like 3 weeks. And I'm like, okay, I'm sold on Austin.
Yeah, that'll do it.
That'll do it.
And at that time before you moved here, you were in Colorado?
Yeah.
Still?
Yeah, born and raised Coloradan.
Cool. Which part again?
So I grew up in a town called Glenwood Springs. So Glenwood Springs is like 12,000 people, little tourist town.
Yeah.
In like 2011, we were voted like #1 tourist town in America. So that was like...
Where, like, what is it near?
It's near, so it's like the working class version of Aspen. So it's about an hour away from Aspen. Okay. It's right on I-70. So if you're driving from Denver to Grand Junction, which is like the meth head city on the western side.
I think I've been there.
Grand Junction?
The meth head city.
Yeah. Checks out. Checks out. Yeah, so Glenwood's like right smack dab in the middle. It's like right as soon as you come across Vail Pass. Little ski town.
Nice.
Yeah.
What are you a cold weather guy? Or are you like the Austin kind of more moderate?
I love skiing. I love the snow. I've fallen in love with beaches and the sun. Like, there's something nice about it.
There's no beaches here, bro. What are you doing?
I gotta.
You go down to Corpus Christi or Galveston?
I've never been, actually. Have you?
Yeah, I grew up. Yeah. South Padre, bro, is worth the drive. It's a drive, but it's worth it. It's the nicest beach in Texas.
South Padre?
Over close to Mexico and by Brownsville.
Okay.
It's like a 7-hour drive, just a little road trip. Throw some podcasts on.
Yeah.
Take a week, like go down there with the boys. We were I don't think we ran that last year, but we were definitely talking about it, and I wouldn't be surprised if we ran it this year. Just like, yo, we got a house with 5-6 bedrooms on the beach. Like, who wants to come?
That's a vibe.
Might have to run that.
Yeah, that's a vibe. But the beaches, I don't know. I cash flow more when I'm on the beach, bro.
Really?
Yeah.
Which beaches are you talking about?
Also, a caveat, maybe that's just a fake belief.
I cash flow more.
I don't think I have evidence for that one to back that one up. But yeah. I don't know. Like, when I was, like, I spent a lot of time in Mexico, and I mentioned, like, Mexico, Greece, the Bahamas. Where else? I lived in Morocco last year in Casablanca. And just, like, being in that, like, tropical environment, it's just sick.
Yeah, for sure. I've never even been to Mexico, but I know a lot of guys that do the digital nomad thing on the beaches or in Mexico City. You been to Mexico City?
No, only Tulum.
I heard it's cool. You got to be in the right area for sure, but the climate is super nice and it's very like mountainous, so it's very, very cool there. I heard.
I really want to go to Hawaii. That's like Luke, my roommate, just got back from Hawaii and seen those photos. I'm like, dude, I gotta go.
Yeah.
Seems like a sick spot.
Yeah, that would be cool. Well, let's see. What should we talk about? Our audience is mostly salespeople, salespeople that are either looking at high ticket or they're in high ticket or they're looking to ascend into ownership or management or something. What do you, I guess now, like with your most recent endeavors, working with the clients that you're working with, um, what is that process like building from scratch after being part of a 30 person multi seven figure team? What's the experience like?
I think it's a lot like it's probably a lot like quitting a corporate job and going back to like starting your own thing of like, obviously I set myself up for success of like having been an entrepreneur before. But I don't think a lot of people realize that you just have like lead generation and sales and cash collection is like the bottom line. It's the lifeblood of any business. It's like
Hmm.
you have to have that fundamentally to just pay rent. And then product quality and delivery is like the bones. It's like the body.
Yeah.
Um, and so for me, it was kind of whiplash to go back from like having consistent, like huge MRR contracts where it's like, okay, our baselines are covered, our team expenses are covered, our COGS are covered, operating expenses, everything, to then going back to like, what do I want to build? How do I want to deliver it? Who do I want to work with? Um, yeah, I mean, it's definitely like, I wouldn't, I think like coming into existing support or existing momentum is so much better unless you have a vision that's big enough where you're like, I just want to I want to cut a new pathway through a mountain. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think it's worth it unless you know what you want to do.
Yeah. It's you have to be the right type of person. I don't know if we were talking about this before. I was talking about it with somebody, but like you have to have that balance between like vision and operations, and you have to do both a lot of times in the beginning unless you want a partner or whatever. And doing that from like 0 to 10 or 20K per month is the hardest part,
For
and a
sure.
lot of people obviously don't get past that. Um, and then I heard someone say the other day, and I feel like it's kind of a common saying, but the guy I was talking to on the phone, he was like, I don't bet on businesses, I bet on entrepreneurs. And
Mm,
so to be the kind of guy that can step in as CEO without ever having run a business like that and do it, um, I mean, you just have a higher probability of this next one working out. And you've been doing it for like a minute now. So like,
yeah.
obviously you're paying rent, you're doing all right.
We're doing pretty well.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, we're definitely we're doing well. I'm very excited. Like now, the big thing is like the tricky side of leaving the agency is like I've already tasted seven figures, and I like novelty, and so I'm like I just want to rip eight figures, and
Yeah.
so now it's like my thinking's different and my approach to the business is different. Of like now I'm trying to solve a big thing that I don't think is talked about enough in sales is like opportunity selection. It's like the reason I'm in real estate, the reason I'm in the industries I'm in, like high ticket info, I love. It's my bread and butter. But the like opportunity selection of for me, it makes so much sense to like rip like let me rip one deal that is a net cash for me of 150K versus ripping 10 deals that are like 15K each because
Hmm.
the complexity, the level of delivery, the people that I have to work with, the amount of headaches, it's like I would much rather just fish for bigger fish.
Yeah. That's fair, especially if you have like some runway to do that. Like there's definitely more power in that coming off like something that was successful and then having that in the back of your mind. It's like I am the person who did that. I am capable. And so you always kind of have this belief that like, hey, even if it takes a little bit longer, it's worth pursuing the bigger fish, right?
For sure.
Um what's kind of like the vision for the current company as far as team structure? Are you looking to keep it pretty like lean? Are you looking to build something that's much bigger than yourself? What's the vision?
Yeah, so I think that there's a lot more entrepreneurs than entrepreneurs in terms of people that can be successful inside of a company. And I think the narrative right now, or the mainstream narrative, is like everybody should like own their own business. And I think that's like such a joke. To your point of like, it's a certain type of person.
Hmm.
So the goal is I want to keep the team lean, but it's my goal right now is hire really, really, really specialized talent. And so I think that one A player can do the work of five B players. And so it's like bringing in those first string all stars.
Yeah. Have you hired any of those people yet?
Yeah, so I have an editor who I'm absolutely obsessed with. So like for me, coming in the marketing world, like I better be a product of my product if I'm practicing and if I'm preaching that marketing is foundational. It's like I mentioned, I'd rather have exceptional marketing and mediocre sales than the other way around, than the inverse. The first person I hired was a video editor. And so I found this kid, his name is Aman, and he's just like obsessed with cinematography, obsessed with storytelling, obsessed with videography. And so he's the perfect person for the job.
Yeah, your content is pretty, like the reels and stuff that you're posting. They definitely like catch your attention. They're not like the standard cookie cutter like Hormozy style. So if that's who's making those, then he's doing all right.
Yeah, he cooks.
How do you know it's the right time to bring that kind of person on, who obviously if they're good at what they do, they are not cheap or shouldn't be cheap? How do you know when it's the right time to bring a not cheap employee into your business? And I guess when it does come to actually the delegation of the work, how do you know when to do that?
Yeah, for sure. I think that I used to believe when I was running Traffic Hive that like I can do the job better than anybody else. Like I used to believe that if I pay someone, they're going to get 80% of the product quality that I could do. And now I've started to learn if I hire an industry expert, actually I'm the 80% and they're what 100% looks like. Now, work ethic and dedication to client results might be different. Like obviously that's me. That's where I get to be bought in, the vision, the dedication to the team, the culture, whatever. Like I have to exemplify culture, work ethic, client obsession. But when it comes to like, he outperforms me in content editing. So that's step number one, is like find talent that actually does the job better than you do. And when to hire the person, for me, it's like I break it down on hours and value of output. And so it's like, how many hours does it take me to produce this content? And how much do I value the output of this content at? Now, can I hire someone for a lower hourly rate than what I do? Like Naval Ravikant is like, price yourself at $500 an hour. Anything you can delegate for less than $500 an hour, delegate, even if you don't charge that much at $500 an hour, because it forces you to think that way. Yeah. So going back to like you said, don't mean to cut you off. You mentioned like now that I've touched 7 figures, I have this belief that I can do that. And that belief is what's propelling me to a bigger vision. I think that's the foundation, is like believing that you can do the thing. Yeah. And so it's like when I believe, it's like, okay, I can charge more. I can work with higher level clients. I can get even more drastic or enlarged results from that foundation of belief. Then I can price myself at a higher hourly rate. And now I can say, okay, well, I already have these contracts. I already have X amount of MRR. Now I can actually hire and delegate the work out to people that are talent.
Yeah. Who are some next key hires that you're kind of looking out for?
Yeah, so I think like the holy trinity of like early stage online businesses or like personal brands or social media businesses, it's a video guy, so either a videographer or video editor, it's a copywriter, and it's an appointment setter. I think those three take off like 80% of the load when it comes to building a brand or like monetizing a brand. So those are my first 3 strategic hires.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense because it helps you, like if you use them, if you're a product of your service, it helps you generate the leads and then it helps you fulfill on the clients. I guess that does, depending on what your fulfillment looks like for clients, that the answer is probably definitely different for a lot of people. Like for us, it's like, can't do anything we do without salespeople, you know? So,
and that's talking about like being a product of your product, right? And so to your point of like key hires, I think it depends on the business, but like the business model I'm in, building personal brands for companies, it's like building a personal brand around the founder of a company. I need 3 roles for them, which is a video editor, a copywriter, and an appointment setter. So those are the 3 key roles for my personal brand. They're also the 3 key roles for any brand I'm working with. Yeah. So if I bring in the right, and this is the other thought process, if I bring in the right editor, copywriter, and setter, they will know more people like them. And so then when I bring on a client, I'm like, hey, I need to find another person. I now have tapped in networks and audiences where I can pull the right talent.
Yeah. That's really important. I talk about it with like the sales reps. It's just really important to be connected to high level people. But like even in the business sense, dude, like with our agency, and I'm sure you get this too, it's like a lot. We don't run ads. We don't run cold email. Like all of our stuff is referrals. It's word of mouth because we don't need that many clients to make good money, you know? Yes. Like those agencies where they charge like $1,000 a month and they need 30 clients to make 30K a month. That's worse than a W-2, bro.
Yes.
Like,
yeah. Cause bro, like people don't realize this, like 30K a month with 30 clients, $1,000 each.
That's 30 jobs.
And you also have like 5 to 6 employees, and now you're actually walking home with like $3K a month.
Yeah.
It's like you're not actually making money, bro.
It's like you're literally spinning your wheels.
Yeah, and you're probably working 80 hours a week, more stressed. Not to mention now you have to do accounting and taxes and set up systems and pay for software. It's like, bro, get a W-2.
Yeah.
For real.
When we were like expanding our agency, obviously salespeople are some of the first hires. But then for us, I think strategically it was salespeople, then sales managers, then operator, like an operations team, and then a finance team.
Yeah.
So like it is pretty different than what you did. I did have content people, but when it came to like running the business and doing it in a way that inevitably grew the business through word of mouth, it was more of like focus on the not like really the lead generation part, but like the getting results for people. But for you, like it's a double-edged sword because you market, you get clients, you do marketing for them, and it just like flywheels.
I think to your point though, like what you're doing is at least how I see it, the right way to go is like you're buying or you're hiring out the lowest value, and lowest being relative, but the lowest value roles up the tiers of the company so you can work more and more on the company. So it's like getting out of sales and hiring sales reps allows you to focus on the systems for sales. Hiring sales managers allows you to focus on sales operations and tracking and data. Getting out of sales operations allows you to get into finances and actually measure profitability. And so you're replacing yourself up the chain, which is the right way to build a company.
Yeah, I think the way that we looked at it was like, what's the most time consuming thing? Because I'm like the marketing and sales guy, and my partner as well. But like, it was like, first it's actually selling the thing. Like there's no way on earth that we do that. But then operations is it's timely, but also time consuming. And so got that. And then finance is like timely and time consuming. But yeah, it's just interesting how like different businesses.
I think that principle is fundamentally the same across all businesses though. Like, so I talk about this a lot with a lot of the people I do business with is like if you have fulfillment perfected, like the ideal thing you can focus on is marketing and brand, which is what you're leaning more and more into. So that's like my philosophy. That's subjective. But like the principles of you want to just replace whatever's taking up 80% of your calendar, and then you focus on the 20%, and over time that just absorbs you in a brand, right? It's like what the Kardashians do. It's what Hermosi does. It's like at the end goal is you just build the brand of the company.
Yeah.
But before you can get there, you have to hire out everything else as you go.
Yeah. I've been I wanted to ask you this. So I already told you who watches this podcast. Salespeople who are in the space, who are not yet in the space, or business owners that are in the space. And a lot of the people we have on here, they are salespeople or business owners, believe it or not. What for 40? What did I say? 43, episode 43. Yeah. We're 43 episodes in. What is something that you feel like we've probably never talked about on this podcast before?
That's such a fire question.
As it pertains to the people who are listening.
That's such a fire question.
It's a tough one. I'll let you sit with it.
Yeah, we can clip this part out.
We're not clipping this out.
Even better.
So we can see how long it actually takes for you to think through, and then we can judge you by the quality of what you're about to say.
Oh, even better. Can we make some awkward eye contact while we wait?
Yeah, just both at the camera.
Yeah, middle one.
There you go. It's a tough one though, because we've had a lot of different people on.
Okay, I've got 2 questions. I've got a backup.
Okay.
If it's not,
I'll tell you. I'll be like, no, we already talked about that.
Yeah. The initial thing that I think we could talk about is sales actually the right vehicle to get into?
I think maybe we've brushed on it, but I think that's we've never like deep dive on that. Okay. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, let's do it.
So you kick us off.
Okay, cool. I think scales is simultaneously the best and the worst possible skill set or opportunities.
All right, cut this. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, let's censor this.
No, let's go. Let's
gets
go
exposed by Dylan now.
Yeah, here comes the marketing guy on the sales podcast.
Yeah, how dare he?
No, No, okay, so you think it's the best and the worst. What do you mean by that?
I think like sales has simultaneously like the highest upside and the highest downside, like high risk, high reward job opportunity. Uh, like how I look at it, like salespeople are regarded as scum of the earth, like the worst of the worst in terms of like if you are like sales is like a very high level form of personal development or character reflection, right? Because it's like if you're effective at the skill set of sales, but you're a liar, you have low morality, you don't care about people, you're not empathetic or not empathetic, you will very quickly become hated by everybody around you. So I think sales is like first you have to trust in the goodness of your character before sales is the right opportunity. So my thought process is like if you are just trying to make money, if you're just trying to cash collect, go find something else to do, bro. Because it's like you might be able to spin up a 100K a month business, but watch in 5 years, nobody will touch you. Like nobody wants to do business with you. So I think fundamentally, if you take care of people, if you have integrity and do good by your word, or at least do your best to do good by your word, like God knows I've oversold and underdelivered before. It's like it's part of the cost of learning in sales. The big thing is like, are you willing to reconcile your mistakes? Are you willing to eat shit to actually get better? If you have a strong character, a strong fiber or moral compass, sales is awesome. If you're just trying to make money, do something else. Go start an OnlyFans.
Yeah.
But I think that the flip side of that, if you have those things, so disclaimer, don't be a scummy salesperson. If you are a good salesperson, like if you actually care about the people you're doing business with, then the biggest thing, like the high upside is like pick the right opportunities. It's like if you're a private jet and yacht salesman, 3 deals a year and you're a 7-figure earner versus like a great salesperson that cares about their clients that's a used car salesman, you're still going to be regarded as kind of an asshole, even if you're a good person. So
Yeah.
I think downside, character flaws, upside, opportunity selection. You pair those, you're good.
Yeah. I thought we were gonna have to dig into the marketing guy for a sec, but no, I mean that's pretty spot on, dude. I mean, usually the guys that are in it for the wrong reasons, they don't last.
Yeah.
Um,
Why don't they last?
the guys that are in it for the wrong reasons,
Yeah.
they just get like sorted out. Like something happens, they do something they shouldn't.
Is
Um,
it usually them like not being able to take accountability and
I,
running away from their
I
own mess or
I feel like eventually, like if you're like building up this like goodwill or like this karma, and like eventually it starts to like pour back into or what you're doing out there, what you're telling people doing beneath these businesses, like it starts to build up inside of you, and then like next thing you know, you're on interviews and like you just have this bad energy, and like you have like this guilty conscience, and I feel like you eventually, if you're in it for the wrong reasons and you are like just doing bad by people, you just eventually get sorted out. Like
yeah.
people can sense that you get low on yourself. I don't know where they go. I'm trying to think about that now.
I don't know where they go.
But also, I'm
What
talking.
happens to burned out sales reps
Yeah,
when they can't jump to another? Because it's always like I see like sales guys like or like I see the same thing with like the personal brand guys, like all these like influencers or like gurus on social media where it's like they launch an offer and then a new offer and then a new offer. It's like you can only change sales jobs or launch a new offer so many times before you just kind of I don't
yeah.
know.
It is crazy seeing people bounce between like not even things that are like somewhat. I mean, maybe they're the same because they're all online high ticket businesses, but like seeing someone go from like fitness coach to dating coach to TikTok shop coach to like it's just wild.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I think to your point, it's like if you actually like even if you're not great at what you do, if you just do your best to like clean up your messes, like God Lord knows like moving from running an agency to like becoming quote unquote a coach or like an Instagram guru. And I have to become okay with that. Like there's a lot of parts of this that I think I've done wrong because like I was used to controlling the whole process and having the best talent in the world. And then suddenly I'm by myself and I don't have responsibility for results because I'm not the one creating the content or behind the camera or running the ads. And so like there was a couple times where like I definitely oversold or like things didn't work out the way that I was hoping they would. And there's this part of me that's like wants to run away, wants to hide, wants to say, all right, I'm going to change business offers. I'm going to go launch a dating program. I'm going to go become a high ticket closer in Dylan's community, which all of you should go do. Dylan's a great guy. But instead, it's like, let me call the client and say, hey, this isn't working the way I wanted to. Let's fix this. Or how do we fix this? Or how do we find a solution? How do we go forward? How can we double down and actually break through the problem? Like I have it written on my mirror, the only way out is through, which is like the whole thing. It's like finding a new sales job is not going to fix the issue of your empathy or your ability to build a relationship with clients.
Yeah. No, 100%. The way that you kind of own up to or make right your mistakes, or whether they were intentional wrongdoing or just complete accidents that affected other people in a negative way, says a lot about the person.
Sure.
I made a tweet. I want to pull it up because I think it kind of like it goes into this content or this context of what we're talking about.
Perfect. And I actually want to even go one step further than just like doing someone wrong or making a mistake. I think it's even if you're doing everything right and you're not making mistakes, it's just not hitting the way you want it to. So like this would be like you have a player sales guy and he's just on an offer where the marketing is terrible. And realistically, he can't close better than a 20% because the opportunity isn't there for him to close better than that, or 30%. Where it's like sometimes you're just in a position where you cannot succeed. And I think that to your point of like the people that come into it with the wrong reasons, like assuming they don't screw anybody over with ill intent and assuming they don't make stupid mistakes, there's also a third thing. If both of those things are true, they haven't operated out of ill intent and they haven't made mistakes. If they run into an opportunity where they simply just like things aren't working because of something outside of their control, I think that's also where you see a ton of people fall off. I think that's also the only place where we see good quality people in this industry fall off is they hit a ceiling of complexity they are unwilling to work through.
Yeah. Dude, how many times have you been faced with situations in life or business where you're like, oh shoot, like I'm doomed, like this is over. There's no way I can get past this, and then you think literally right here today, it's like, dang, I made it through all of those. Like literally every single situation, I made it through and I'm here. And then it's like, whether that was one time or no times, one time or 10 or 20 times, it's like in the moment, it feels so like heavy, so difficult, so like the end of everything. And then you just think in the present moment, it's like, yeah, that thing that was the worst thing to ever happen to me in my life, I made it through.
Actually wasn't all that bad.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it could for sure suck and not be fun, but
for sure,
it's just like in tying that back into like a business context, it's like the people who win, they just do it longer, you know?
That's talking about like, I want to hear this tweet.
Yeah.
But I think the fundamental thing is discipline, right? It's like the ability to exercise the muscle of doing the thing even when you really don't want to do the thing. It's like I could tell some nasty personal stories of situations that I was hopeless, but I've also had in business like where like clients. I flew to Canada for a client project. I show up in Canada. The dude promised to reimburse my flight and pay me to fly to Canada. I show up to Canada with $300 in my bank account, and the dude ghosted me. And so now I'm out like $800 on a flight, and I have to figure out how to cross the entire country of Canada from Montreal to Vancouver with $300. And so I've had these moments where I'm like, I'm literally gonna die.
Yeah.
Like business is gone, I'm gone. What's gonna happen? And you figure it out. So, but I want to hear this tweet. But
well, that's wild. How'd you get across with $300?
So, okay, like same thing in business. It's like look for the opportunities. And so it's like, who do I know that's somewhat close by? So I found a guy that was 3.5, 4 hours away. I called him. I'm like, hey, is there any way you're willing to drive to Montreal and pick me up and let me sleep on your couch? And he said yes. And so I go live with this dude on his couch for 2 weeks. And while I'm living there, like, I don't know what to do. So when in doubt, focus out. I just double down on like actually helping. And so like I had clients, I had projects I'm delivering on. So I just doubled down on quality. And so I'm working with Gerard. I'm working with a couple other clients at the time. And so I'm ripping DMs. Like I'm working longer hours and I'm just doubled down on work. I'm like, let me just hit this as hard as I can. And I want to say it was like I think I had 3 days left at this dude's house before I was like, I had to figure out where to go next. And we were sitting down, we were like having lunch or dinner. And he was asking me what I've been working on. Cause I'm like obsessively working. and I'm just grinding. And he asked me, he's like, hey, what are you working on? I started telling him about this campaign I'm working on. He's like, can you do that for me? And I was like, I would love to. And he goes, how much? And I go, and I needed, like, I had, at this point, I think my bank account was like literally zeroed out. Like, I needed to pay rent and figure out how to get across Canada. And I was like, 5K. And I've never asked for 5K before, like 5K as a client retainer. And he's like, done. Where do you want me to send the money? And so I closed him 5K PIF on a retainer. And that 5K PIF was like, but I couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. I just had to keep working.
Yeah, that's actually a really good representation of what we were just talking about. Like that's a rough situation, especially in like Canada, like different country.
Worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah, I literally slept on couches for 2 weeks.
That's wild.
The best part is too, is like it was the 2 weeks of sleeping on couches, not knowing where I was gonna go the next day, not how, because my return flight was from Vancouver. So I landed in Montreal and I have to get to Vancouver. And the 2 weeks that I was there, like highest anxiety time of my life, like a couple of things I did. I still took time for fitness. I still took time outside. I worked as hard as I possibly could. And it was the results from working every day. Like I was so focused on business. It was those results that gave me the momentum that when I had the conversation with him, when he asked, hey, what are you working on? I could say, this is what I've done in the last 2 weeks for a client. And that's what actually gave me the opportunity to sell. Because like if I showed up and day one was like, who do I sell? Like, where do I find the money? I don't think I would have made it out, because I would have thrown all the projects I had to the side, would have had ill intentions, and would have been like, oh, just give me money, give me money. And instead I was like, let me just do what I said I was going to do. Actually follow through on that. And then I know I have faith. So I'm like, I know God will provide as long as I do what I promised.
Yeah. So you just had you flew to Montreal and then just booked the flight back from Vancouver. Like, had you planned to already go over there, or you just decided to pick the opposite side of the country?
Yeah, imagine I was like, oh, let's go on a road trip. Yeah, definitely don't do this in business. So like if you're starting a business, if a client says they're going to fly you somewhere, make them just buy the ticket. And if they're going to pay you for the travel, make sure they pay you before you travel. So those would probably be like the two big lessons learned. But no, I was supposed to meet him in Montreal, and we're supposed to road trip across the country over a month. And so that's why I had a flight in on one side, and then a month later, a flight on the West Coast back home, is because we were supposed to spend 30 days traveling across the country, like doing this giant coast to coast marketing campaign. It's like we had all the cities planned out, we had the venues planned out, like we had this whole marketing campaign planned. And I show up and I'm calling him and I'm texting him. I'm like, where the are you, dude? I'm like,
dude, I mean, that's like super messed up. Like that's, I almost want to tell the listeners who this guy is so we can solve the problem. But like, that's wild, bro.
Yeah,
like,
that sucked. But honestly, like great business lessons, deepened my faith in God more than just about anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to, while I have this up, I'm not going to read it word for word, but the idea ties into what we were just talking about. I'm curious to get your take, but
Bro, read it.
I was just thinking through just different like business engagements and different like difficult situations that I've gone through, and just like how I typically handle those things, and then observing how other people handle those things. And it was just a thought that came to my mind of like the types of people that, let's say like a business partnership goes south and they become like super combative. They try to start like taking stuff that's not theirs, or they're like willing to like delay or like squash the future opportunity or the potential in front of them just to like get back at someone, like this weird like hyper fixation on like, no, like I have unfinished business with this person, this business, like it is my objective to like harm them or like destroy them, and they put it over what might be ahead of them, whether it's like, I mean, it could even be like in a relationship, right? Whether it's like going and seeking out a new business partner, a new romantic relationship, or even just like your own personal venture. What's your take on that? Have you worked with people like that?
Dude, I mean, I think we just talked about someone like that, bro.
Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, it sounds like this guy was just like, oh, I'm just not gonna like respond to this.
Yeah, follow through on what I said I was gonna follow through on.
But like all the most successful people that I know they're always like, no, I don't really care. I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
Like they don't really get hung up on that kind of stuff. Even if they get done dirty, wrong, like worse than you've ever heard before, they're like, no, I'm gonna go focus on like signing this client.
Yeah. No, it's like, so I'll rapid fire a couple examples. Like that situation I was in, as soon as I knew that he wasn't going to show up, it was on to solution mode. It was like,
Yeah.
okay, what can I do to actually get out of this situation? So it's like, okay, moving on. And it's like, he actually came to me through a referral, which is why I blind trusted him in the first place. Is the person who connected me with him is someone I trust deeply, and I still do to this day. And so the conversation, I just reached out to the guy that connected us, and I said, hey, just so you know, this is what's happened. I don't want to read into it. I don't know his situation. I don't know if he's alive, but here's what's happening. That was it. And then now solutions mode.
Yeah.
On to the next thing. I had a situation in business where someone drained like $35,000 out of our business account. And I woke up and we had like $6,000 in the account, and we have tens of thousands of dollars of employee payroll, and the account's been liquidated. And so it's like situations like that where it's like, okay, is there a course of action that we need to pursue? Like just to clean up the situation, make sure this doesn't go nuclear. Solutions mode. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, moving on. It's like, what's the lesson? How do we make sure this never happens again? How do we go on to the next thing?
Yeah.
I'm super curious if you've had experiences like that. Obviously, you've seen mentors and people around you.
Nothing really personal. No, I'm thinking back to like growing up, like being kids, and like, I don't know, like a lot of like image, like you grow up sometimes with like really immature people, and they, you look at them now and you're like, damn, like that person, like they're struggling over there, right?
Yeah.
Not always
Yeah.
the case, and they can always change and turn around, but like, just like maybe you can think off the top of your head, like 1, 2, 3 kids that grew up like in your neighborhood, and like they were always like a little salty. They're always trying to like get the most out of someone or something, and like that like I guess thought process and practice, like I feel like it just kind of projects into so many other areas of your life, and you usually don't end up like, I mean, again, all the most successful people I know, they're not the ones to get hung up on past stuff, even if well, maybe if it was their fault, they would get hung up because they would want to make it right. But like,
Yes.
if someone else did them wrong, they're like, yeah, that was really bad. I'm not going to make that mistake again. I'm not going to work with that person again, but I'm going to go do this.
Yep.
So,
Yeah. I think it's like the like forgive not forget. It's like a high tolerance for mistakes happening around you, while also having like an extremely high level of accountability and integrity for your own stuff. So it's
Yeah.
like I've seen the same thing of like the most successful people I know. Whenever they mess up in any way, shape, or form, they're the fastest people to clean it up. Like the feedback loop between them, even like the smallest things of like, hey, I'll be there at 8:00. Hey, I'm gonna be there at 8:05. Like the smallest things, they're exceptional with their word. And then on the opposite, like someone isn't exceptional with them, I've seen them be very forgiving, very graceful. To the
yeah.
point it's like, okay, like moving on, next thing. Yeah, it's really I love this quote. There's a quote: circumstance does not make a man, it reveals him. Or circumstance does not create character, it reveals it. And I think this mentality of trying to get revenge or holding things against people is the same mentality that takes advantage of people. It's like, how can I get the most out of this situation, the most out of this person, instead of where can I add value? And I think it's like we're talking about like sales reps that they get sifted out of the industry, or actually you asked like where do they go? I think you just get sifted to the bottom of the industry. So it's like we have used car salesmen and these people sitting down there because that's the only place where that the Bible says that when you shine a light, darkness scatters, right? And that might not be exactly how it says in the Bible. Sorry. But like darkness scatters in the light. Shadows disappear when you shine a light on it. I think the salespeople just go where it's the darkest, where there's the lowest level of accountability in sales.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Or they go into construction. I'm just kidding.
Oh
I mean, that's probably true.
Yeah.
I don't know. No, they end up in like $60K per year insurance State Farm jobs.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
And it's like, I think a really good test of your willingness to like move on from something isn't like you look at that dude from high school or that kid from middle school and they're like down bad, it's like it's pretty easy to feel forgiveness.
Yeah.
It's like when the person that did you wrong is actually doing better than you. I think that's really the test of like this person that I feel slighted me or took advantage of me or whatever it is. I think real like that character trait shows up when that person is running laps around you in the things that you value.
Mm-hmm.
That's when it's like, okay, do I actually forgive this person or am I just doing it out of pity?
Yeah. I don't think I've ever had that. Maybe I have, but I feel like I haven't because if I did, that would make me upset and I would remember it right away.
Yeah, that's very true. I will say that I'm flawless and much better than everybody that's ever wronged me. So I can't relate either,
Yeah.
but I'm throwing it out there as a thought.
Well, shoot, man. What else? What should we kind of wrap this up with? We talked about a lot of different stuff. We talked about some sales, some of your story, some cool like personality conceptual things here and there. Let me think.
I got two things that I'd be down to.
Yeah.
Obviously, your podcast.
Yeah, no.
We'll talk about anything. I would love to hear from you because you're the sales bro, like literally the sales bro podcast. What's like one of the biggest or what is the biggest mistake you've ever made in sales? Like as a closer, closing a deal, have you ever like set a deal on fire?
Like you're talking about like a specific deal?
Yeah, like a big mistake that you've made in your personal closing journey.
I mean, probably just going to like roofing sales, just like grossly underbidding projects and then having signed them and then going into the whole construction project knowing that we're actually going to lose money, but you can't go back. And like the whole time people are the project managers, the other managers, anyone involved, they're just like, why are we doing this? We're losing money. We're not getting paid. This and that. I mean, that's like a very like black and white version. It's like,
it's a good example though.
It's pretty, I mean, it's pretty forgiving as long as it's not catastrophic or anything. And there's always ways, like if it's that bad, you can go back to the customer, which is not fun, but like,
have you ever had to do that? Like you bid so low that like the project manager comes back and is like, dude, you have to go raise the rate.
Probably. Yeah. It's been a while, but yeah, probably. Or like,
some like 80-year-old grandma. Dude.
Yeah. Like there's been times where like, it's a steep 2-story roof. I don't have like the right gear. And then I just kind of like freestyle from what I can see from the ground, bid the roof. And then, turns out once they go up to like tear the roof off, there's like something in the middle that you couldn't see from. And then turns out you're, this many thousands of dollars short on material. And then that comes out of your commission. And so like the worst mistakes that I made, I felt financially because I was paid on like profit or not profit, but like gross revenue minus the, like some of the expenses and all this stuff. And so,
how do you follow up question on that? I think that's the best way to like pay out salespeople is like you have accountability of like, not only do you have accountability to price out the project correctly, but it's like you have accountability if you don't. Like if you grossly underbid just to close the deal, now you're going to eat some of that cost. You're going to have to go fix it. How do you feel about putting accountability? Like instead of just, hey, you get 10% of cash collected, it's like if a client that you closed refunds or charges back, that's coming out of your check. How do you feel about putting that in closer comp?
If it needs to be communicated from the beginning. There's situations where we do that and there's situations where we don't. And being in the business that we are, the sales agency, at the like scale that we sell, it's just in our sales rep agreements, like, hey, if it comes back from us, it comes back from the sales team. And if we could afford not to do that, then we would, because it sucks for everyone. Like it kills the morale, lowers the paycheck, lowers margin. It's just not fun.
Yeah, it's even negative on the customer. Like nobody enjoys the wrong expectation.
Yeah. But I also have there's some other stuff that I run where unless the sales rep is the reason for it, then I'll just eat it. And obviously, like if you have high refund, high chargeback, that's just not sustainable. Right. And so in some of these businesses where we will just eat it, which I think is the practice that you should lean towards if you can afford it, like there's very low refund, there's very low chargebacks, and usually it's for things that have nothing to do with the sales process. It's like, oh, this person found themselves in a really tough personal situation and they, you know, thought that
Hold
this was the
back.
best option and then
Yeah.
charge back.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with anybody except them. So
Mhm.
yeah, it sucks. It kills the morale. I mean,
Dude, this is the hard part, right? Because it's like the wrong closer, and suddenly you're getting charged back and refunds because they're lying to customers or taking advantage or
yeah,
using high pressure sales. So it's like you want accountability for bad apples to weed them out. But then if you have accountability, it also scares away good closers because they're like, hey, I'm not going to do any of that. Why would I pay for,
yeah. And
bad client delivery or a personal situation on the
it definitely
prospect side?
it puts a lot of pressure on us to make sure that the clients are good, marketing is good. Like what I was talking about earlier, it's like instead of hyper fixating on the actual sales call, like making sure everything around, including fulfillment, is good so that this doesn't happen. Um, but I do want to add on like one thing about running our agency, and it's most clients, not all, where we have like we literally have no choice because of the margin of the business. One, it's communicated beforehand. Two, if we're always going to go and work with the client, some of the client agreements, like we are responsible, some we're not. Like if it's a product thing and someone's not happy with the product, we have different deals with different teams to basically say we are like, we will take that with you or we won't. Um, but also like we offer other things that other teams cannot offer, like the security to know that we have other teams in the ecosystem. Should this one shut down,
Mm-hmm.
should this one
Mm.
slow down, whatever it might be, you have that. And there's just like other benefits to operating in our ecosystem. So we try to, again, ideal situation, nobody has to deal with that, but it's just the reality. So we
Yeah.
try to even it out.
It's the saying like plan for the worst, expect the best. It's like that's really how you deal with it. It's
Yeah.
just be prepared.
Yeah.
It's crazy stuff.
Yeah. Did you ever have any commissions like clawed back as an appointment setter? How did it feel? No?
No, I was flawless. I'm just a perfect salesperson.
Well,
I don't even know what objection handling is.
all right, let's end on this note. You had a 18K deal that didn't close today. You got stuck with a partner objection, if I remember right.
Yeah, I don't know objections, but I don't speak that language. I'll screenshot the close tomorrow.
Okay. So it's a legit partner objection.
Legit. Yeah.
Okay, because
Yeah,
I'm
I
coming
will.
here with my flat tire on my car, which we didn't talk about, and we're like talking about two different things. We're like, I'm like, dude, I got a flat tire. It's raining. I'm in traffic, and you're like, I'm trying to close this deal. This like we're talking to each other about our situations, and because of our situations, we're like not actually
Yeah,
present in
I
the.
was so checked out. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, are we role playing a flat tire as the objection handle? Like, I've never
Yeah,
heard this closing mechanic
yeah.
before. Like,
Okay, so how did you know, or how do you know? Let's assume this thing closes tomorrow. Hopefully, it's a good deal, 18K.
mhm.
How do you know that this is actually the objection, and how do you know that okay, I trust we're gonna end the call. We're gonna show up to the second call tomorrow, or whatever if you run a second call. How do you get to the bottom of that?
How do I get to the bottom of whether that's the real objection or not? I think it's fundamentally, at least for me in sales, and I'm not a professional closer, so I could be totally wrong. Um, I think like I just have to answer two questions on a call, and then I know I can rip and I can actually close the deal. And I'm a vicious closer when I'm bought in. And the two questions are is like, do they believe that we can actually get them results? So it's like number one, do they understand we actually can solve this problem or alleviate this pain point? And number two, do we believe it? And it's like if we have just those two things, it's number one, they think that we can solve the problem, and number two, we have high conviction that we can solve the problem. I'll chase someone to the end of the earth. And realistically, actually, what ends up happening is like if I know I can solve the problem, they know I can solve the problem. It just closes.
Yeah,
Because it's like we talking about all the things around your process. It's like I don't like dealing with money objections. Like if someone doesn't have the
yeah,
money to buy something, I'm like cool, go somewhere else.
yeah,
Like go secure your bag. I don't I'm not a payment plan or financing. It's like if I've had a couple of people finance through like Klarna or payment plans or split pays. If they're bought in to do that on their own, I'm so down.
Yeah.
If I need to have like if they're like, hey, I don't have the money in my bank account, but I have access to credit, but I can finance, but you have a payment plan, I'm there. Because then they believe I can solve the problem. They're like, I just don't have the money right now. I'm like, great, call me when you do.
Yeah.
Like but then again, I don't need that business either. So
that's like the best place to operate from. That's how we do a lot of our stuff, especially like the stuff that I'm really involved in. Because the more you have to strong arm people into working with you, the higher likelihood that it's probably not who you want to work with. And I actually really like that, like, two things, because a lot of people in the closing space, they like overcomplicate it. It's like, I got this whole script and these 10 bullet points, and based on these answers, then I go down this talk track.
Yep.
And that, I mean, dude, I feel like as a person in the sales space, I probably shouldn't be advocating for it, but like, dude, it really is that simple. As long as you have conviction in what you do and you can talk halfway decently.
Yes. As long as you can communicate that.
Yeah, like you need to communicate value.
Yes. But I to your point, it's like I have two extremely high beliefs, and it's like, to simplify the whole thing, I've never run sales scripts. Like, I'm conversational salesperson. What that means is like, they know I can do it, I know I can do it. It would be a no-brainer it's a no-brainer to do it, and it would be idiotic to not do it. Right? So it's like, you just make it so simple, and the way you do that is they understand what you do, you understand what they do, you understand you can solve the problem. That's it. So simple. The other thing for me is like, the more resistance there is around the money, the less likely it is that they're the right client. And also I have this belief that the lower integrity I am as a salesperson. And so it's like, if I need to start pushing for payment plans or sell your Xbox on eBay, and this is me personally, especially working with B2B, like working with business owners that need runway, that need the space to actually implement what we do, to work with me, to give me the time to get the result. It's like, the more, like, I even look at it with, like, we'll go back to car salesmen. It's like the car salesman where you show up and you're like, hey, I've got the money, or I've done the research, I'm ready to buy the car. That's awesome. And then the salesperson can just like take the money, give you the car, everybody wins. Versus when you go in and they're doing like extensive credit checks and they're leaning on relationships and they have to figure it out, where it's like, I think that's where we start setting people up to fail. It's like, that's when you actually start setting up the end user to fail. It's like, if they're like, hey, I know I want to do this and I can figure out the way to make it happen, great, let's do this. Versus, I don't know if I want to do this and I don't know if I can figure it out. And it's like, oh, don't worry, like, we'll run the credit checks for you. Don't worry, we'll figure out the financing for you. That's where I'm like, dude, just lose the sale.
I think the world would be a better place if we could all sell like that.
Yeah.
And most people, I mean, dude, it doesn't always come down to the individual sales rep too. I mean, sometimes it can, but like, sometimes that pressure is applied by the manager's manager. And then you really, like, you're just this cog in the machine. Like, you are being forced to operate like this. My whole thing is like, dude, if marketing's dialed in, like, I want to make sales. I'm not like, hold on, let me think about how I want to say this.
Yeah. You're in a political environment right now.
Yeah. I don't want to come off as like the lazy sales guy, but I want to come off as a sales guy that gets the job done easily and has a really low reversion rate as far as like chargebacks and refunds, because then I make less money. And so, like, if marketing is good with expectations and it pre-handles objections and does all that, and the product actually is good, like it's better than the competitors, it can get the people the results, that's where I want to sell.
Yes.
You know, like I want to sell, like what I think we were talking about earlier, like, to where the sales call is just simply the next step in buying the thing because I already decided I want to buy the thing.
Yes.
That's the perfect place to sell.
When it's so interesting because, like, the higher ticket and the higher quality clients, you see this. Like, the guy that's shopping for a private jet already knows he wants the private jet, already has the money for the private jet, is already ready to buy the private jet.
Yeah.
Versus the guy that's buying a $5,000 car, doesn't really know if he needs a car or not.
Yeah.
And so it's like, to your point, it's like, if it's the natural evolution of the conversation to collect payment and commit, do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so interesting of like the like upwards pressure of like management or leadership where they're like sales. I've almost, like, every time I've encountered, and I've worked with a lot of these guys that are ripping $1 million month sales funnels where they're running, 20-person closer operations with 30 setters or call centers or whatever it is. And almost every single time I've seen that, where it's like a leadership pressure of sales, 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 they're completely ignorant to marketing and the ecosystem around sales, where they're like, oh, I'm only posting content, I'm only running ads because I'm trying to get sales. Like they don't actually care the relationships, the goodwill, the nurturing, the value they're putting out. It's like they're just putting out value because they see it as like the simplest way to make more money for them.
I think those people are the same ones that are like, when it comes to marketing, they're like, yeah, I can get this many leads at this cheap.
Yes.
And they just like run through, hire as many salespeople, and then just like force the money into the company.
Yes.
That's not fun, dude.
It's lame, bro. It just feels sticky. Okay, I have a couple of things, and I know we're gonna wrap up here. Something that I think is really interesting is I think that every time we get like low integrity sales experiences, like either as the consumer or as the sales rep, it comes out of a place of desperation. Like I've only ever seen low integrity come when you're operating from a state of like, I heard this frame and I love this frame. It's like if you got on the sales call and you had $1 million a year salary, and the only way, like if you close the deal or you don't close the deal, it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect your salary. You don't make any more money. You have $1 million a year salary. That's $83,000 a month. That's $20K a week as a salary. But if you close someone who shouldn't have been closed, that won't get results, you lose your whole salary. And so if you come in with that frame of like, I'm already making 83 grand a month and I will lose my entire salary if I sell someone who shouldn't be sold. If I'm operating from that level of abundance, I'm going to be a high integrity salesperson versus it's January. It's like, oh my God, it's January 28th. I have to pay rent in 3 days. Yeah. I need $500. Like that's where I think it comes down to the low integrity stuff is out of desperation.
Yeah. So I see that for sure. Unfortunately, most people are closer to that.
That's true.
I mean, not even just like from the integrity standpoint, just from the actual situation. Like it's hard for some people to be like, no, dude, I make $1 million. I just need to not have refunds,
Yeah. I say I agree with you, and I've seen the exact same mentality of desperation and that like mine from guys that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Like I've had one-on-one conversations with these guys where they're still desperate to take your money.
Yeah.
But it's like they're worth like generational wealth. And so like I would argue back to you that like if that's actually your situation, if you're listening to this podcast and you have that high level of desperation, it's like lean on the resources around you, right? Like talk to your church, get a stable job, actually figure out your income, like maybe stop eating out and spending your money on weed and OnlyFans, like cut your subscriptions, like actually like figure out your situation. Yeah. But more importantly, my belief is it's a mindset. Because like if it's happening with the guy that has $200 in his bank account, but also the guy at 200 million, it has to be mindset.
Yeah.
Which is just like stop just trying to take people's money.
Yeah, the mindset's going to limit who you meet, what rooms you get in, what opportunities get presented to you. Like, yeah, you got to fix the fundamentals. That's why, dude, I love salespeople that have hobbies outside of sales, because if sales is their, I say this as the sales bro, the guy, but I swear I do other things. But like if I'm like talking to someone who like lives, eats, sleeps, and breathes sales, like they're the ones who get rocked the hardest in the dips. They're the ones that get the most emotional with the highs.
Yep.
And long term, they're more difficult people to build around.
Yes.
And I love a guy that's like a jiu-jitsu blue belt, because like this guy's gonna clock out at 7 p.m. or clock out at 5 p.m. and get to jiu-jitsu at 7, and he's like gonna be refreshed after. He's gonna be ready to go the next day. Or the guy that super into pickleball or super into golf or like chess or I don't know what anything or
for sure. Because like there's so I come from a background of substance addiction. Like I was a drug addict as a kid. I don't mean to get too personal.
Okay.
Sorry, drop a bomb as we wrap up. But there's like sales is an industry where like we have a ton of addict behaviors. Like the personality type of salespeople is like very much that same high risk, high reward, high addictive personality. Mm-hmm. And there's this thing like Alcoholics Anonymous. I never went to rehab. Like I figured it out using the support systems I already had instead of having to go to rehab to build one. But there's this concept in like addiction recovery where your addiction tries to isolate you from the support systems that you have that keep you from relapsing. So like the number one thing in terms of not relapsing and going back to the behavior is having effective support systems around you. So that looks like animals, social life, romantic life, family life, responsibilities outside of your work, like things
Yeah.
that actually can be your anchor, faith in times when the emotional ups and downs. And to your point, it's like if all you have is a sales job and you lose the commission or you make a massive commission, it's like those are the people that definitely spiral out because they don't have an ecosystem around them to say, hey, bro, you had an awesome month, but remember last month you made no money, so maybe manage it.
Yeah. Dude, the dopamine that comes from like big commissions and all that, like it's a drug, bro. It is like a drug. I literally was under the influence of that drug. Like
Yeah.
I remember, dude, I sold one roof and I made I think it was like my biggest roof. I made like an $11,000 commission.
Yep.
And I was like a kid out of school. And I mean, I had made big commissions. I had some that were like 2,000, 2,500, 3,000. And once I did that, I mean, I was hooked. And I think a lot of people do that, but you have to, you got to remember what's important, remember what's going to help you be here in 10, 20 years. Because you get lost in the sauce, especially once you start getting that money in, and it's like you go and start buying all this stuff and having, going out at night and like just doing stuff that's not good for you. So
yeah, it's real.
Don't get addicted. Don't become an addict.
Bro, but it's addictive.
It is, yeah. I mean, that even a viral video, like a marketing guy, 1,000,000 views on a video is like put that in my veins,
Yeah.
Um,
it literally the exact same feeling as hitting a fix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I hit 1,000,000 views once. I know what it feels like.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You know.
Yeah. Honestly, dude.
You should launch a course on how to go viral.
I got to figure it out a little bit more. But no, that's definitely up there, bro. I mean, I made a $11,000 commission check, which feels a little bit more real. Like it's like money in my account. And like at the time that was a lot of money.
Life-changing.
And then, also I had a video, like I don't have that many that have gone viral, but like I had one go up to 1.7 million. And it's like, it's hard to even comprehend what that looks like, bro. Like I grew up in San Antonio, Texas. It's like in the top 10 biggest cities in the US. 1.3 million people live there. And just to like imagine that, bro, it's crazy.
That video reached more people than the entire city you grew up in.
Yeah.
And San Antonio is like an hour and a half from one side to the other, right?
It's a big city, bro.
It's not
like
small.
It's sprawling like Houston.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes you think, bro. That was early on when I was like really starting to like post on social media. I had a video hit 13K. Like 13,000.
Those hit too, bro. Yeah.
And it was 13,000 views. And my like childhood friend sent me a picture of a football stadium full of people. He's like, and because I was down, bro, I was sad. I'm like, only 13K. Like I'm trying to go viral. Like I almost hit it big.
Yeah.
And he sends me this photo of this stadium full of people. And he's like, just a reminder what 10,000 people look like.
Yeah.
And I was like,
yeah, bro, you gotta, especially when the content is that of quality and it's like, wow, 10,000 people saw this piece of content,
it's interesting, like the addict coming to terms with reality of like at the end of the addiction cycle is like, oh my God, my life is abysmal. So last year I had a video that hit 20 million views. 20 million is a big number.
I'm trying to comprehend that right now.
Yeah, that's almost 10% of the US population.
That's wild.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But it was a reposted video of someone else's stuff and it has like 1.9 million likes on it. And like,
that's crazy.
I want to say it's like 900,000 shares. Like the statistics are overwhelming, but I look at the video and I feel so much shame. Of like, I see this video. I made a video that has 20 million views on it. And every time I see it, I feel ashamed. Because I'm like, because to your point, it's like, it's not a product of quality.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I look at it and I'm like, dude, imagine if I had a video that was of me, of something I actually cared about that reached 20 million people versus like, it's a good video. It's a high quality video. Like it's a meaningful message. I think it's like a significant thing. It's not brain rot. Like, it's not some Charlie D'Amelio. It's like actually quality content. But I'm like, damn, like I feel like almost this regret of like, I'm building a personal brand and like my most successful video ever isn't personal.
That's interesting.
L behaviors, bro.
That's interesting. Hopefully you got some sales off it at least.
No, so that's broke because
Yeah.
it was empty. It wasn't me.
Yeah.
So I mean, I got like I think like 8,000 followers off of it. But like it didn't build trust. It didn't generate
Yeah.
SQLs. Like at the end of the day, the name of the game is SQLs on marketing. So sales qualified leads for those listening, SQL.
Yeah. That's the thing with going viral like that.
Yeah.
The people who blow up, like they're talking about the Huck to a girl. She's like, well, she was doing some crypto stuff, but
Yeah, her rug pull.
gone like
Yeesh.
the biggest thing one day, and then just like I don't know if she's gone or what now, but like you blow up that fast. Not saying that's what you did, but like that audience that comes off of just that like super top of funnel, they're not really
Doesn't
usually
last.
the person that you're wanting to reach.
No. And so it's like it's interesting because like I now have this experience of like building a brand backwards. Of like I have a lot of like front end awareness, but like not
Mm-hmm.
and it's like the good news is like in the industry, in what I do, I have a good reputation. And like people know my name to some degree. I'm not an Alex Hermosi, but I'm somewhat recognized in the social media marketing world, which I'm grateful for. But now it's like, okay, like if I'm gonna have videos like that, it's like how do I then create the trust around it? The Hawk Tua girl, she named her company 15 Minutes. Did you see that? Like she like understands like okay, I have shallow worldwide virality, so she named her like the company that like was running all of her stuff was called 15 Minutes, like 15 Minutes of Fame.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, so it's like I mean, obviously, if you're gonna go that route, and it's like, oh, I'm just trying to be a like a neon where like I hit attention and virality for you know a year or six
Yeah.
months to secure the bag. It's like at least understand that's what you're doing, or ideally build a reputation so strong and build recognition around your name that's so strong. It's like you'll be able to do business forever because a lot of the people in high ticket sales know who you are. And so even if you decided to shut down your YouTube or shut down the agency you're running, you have a reputation that can carry you forth and you can reach out to people that you've met through that
Yeah.
reputation and say, "Hey, I'm Dylan Vergara. This is what I'm working on. Do you want to be a part of it?" And you have goodwill instead of being like, "Oh, aren't you that guy that like staged that video of you getting jumped by people, or aren't you that girl that
Yeah.
said Hawk Tua?"
Yeah. There's
Different games.
it's really difficult to work with people, bro, that like they probably content creators, they probably have an audience, they may have been doing it for a while, but they just see like big numbers as success. And then when it comes down to like a sales uh perspective, it's like you if you're the sales team on the back of that, it's like, dude, I got a 700,000 views and climbing right now. Why are there only 2 appointments? It's like, dude, you're these people aren't here for appointments. They're here
Yeah.
for
Dopamine.
to see you hit the TikTok dance, you know?
Yeah, yeah, they're here for their little TikTok. It's
Well,
sad, bro. It's really sad. Thank God we have the backup.
yeah.
So to wrap up.
So,
I'll end on this. Because it's relevant to the sales thing. I recently just did a marketing audit for a company. We probably actually signed a contract this week. November 248,000 cash collected. December 265,000 cash collected. January less than 130. Sales team is exceptional. Setting team is exceptional. What went wrong? All of their videos are literally ass, bro. It's like super shallow, super fake, no actual investment on the personality. L content, L marketing, low trust. Anybody that would have bought has already bought.
yeah.
Of course, the revenue dropped in half.
We have a situation like that right now too, without getting into it because I know we're gonna wrap up. But dude, our team is probably doing 120% of what we did last month. December, we had a record month. For someone that's been running a business for a long time online, we brought him to this record month, our third month working with him, and then now it's down. But like marketing is talking, it's just like there's a lot of misalignment between the offer where we want people to go and what the marketing looks like. So we're doing more work than on the record month with a fraction of the revenue, and it's like, well, dude, we're the ones who got the record month last month. Like the sales team, we're same people right here, you
Yeah.
know.
But the business owner always blames sales first. It's like, oh, sales messed up. Like, what's wrong with your sales team? It's like, sales is the same, bro.
Yeah,
You just don't have good relationships.
yeah. Well, let's wrap it up there. We went for maybe an hour 35, 40.
W
So
combo, bro.
good convo. A lot of a lot of content, a lot of clips to come from this. You guys go follow Harrison. Link whatever you want down there for sure. Instagram and whatever else he wants. Go to the description. Follow him.
Can I do a call to action?
Yeah.
Bet. All right. 2 call to actions. If you are an entrepreneur, salesperson, anything, follow me on Instagram, the Harrison Coley. If you are already a 7-figure business owner, high ticket info, or real estate investment, and you want better marketing so you get better sales, DM me on Instagram, or if you're down, I'll just give you the Calendly link. But DM me on Instagram. Tell me that you came from the podcast, the Sales Bro Show, Sales Bro Podcast. And let's hop on a call and we'll talk about what's going on in your business. But everybody follow me, Instagram, the Harrison Coley.
Cool. You might, I don't know if you want to throw Calendly, bro. You might get some people booking with you that you might not want to talk to all day. Hopefully those people, hopefully they're watching.
Fingers crossed.
They should be watching.
Yeah.
If you share this to your audience and they're in there.
Yeah.
I might have some.
We also like our Calendly has application on it.
Okay. So, there you go.
Yeah.
You're going to get qualified. Just a heads up if you go down there. Don't think it's a free info session. But anyways, episode 43, our 3rd in-person Sales Bro Pod, 3rd out of 43. So it was good. Good conversation. Appreciate you guys watching.